In Argentina, a simple poodle took several human lives in mere minutes. In Spain, a hotel room turned into a tomb. At a U.S. plant, a robot murdered its human colleague in cold blood. These are not fantasies designed to catch your attention. They are just some of the top most unusual deaths, which we'll talk about in this video. So, viewer discretion is advised. 68-year-old Alice Wardle and her younger sister, Mildred Bowman, were supposed to meet their family on July 31st, 2005, in Benidorm, Spain. The widowed retirees had arrived from the English town of Gateshead the day before. The former baker and cleaner visited Spain several times every year, but as they weren't particularly wealthy, their chosen place of stay was a 2-star hotel named Levante Club Apartments. They set up a meeting with their family, went to sleep, and disappeared. That is, Alice and Mildred didn't show up at the designated meeting spot the following morning. The two sisters liked having fun, so the family members didn't worry much at first and just went around the pair's favorite places. The women were nowhere to be found though. After a few more days of fruitless searching, the family officially reported them as missing. Only 4 days later, the maid who worked at the hotel Alice and Mildred were staying at told the police she hadn't managed to enter their room even once, as it had been locked from the inside the entire time. That was exactly where the police found the two women, in the bed, under it to be more precise. The pull-down bed's wooden frame fell on Alice and Mildred, virtually burying them alive. Yet the most terrifying thing was that the sisters spent 3 days frantically fighting for their lives. They lacked the strength to push the frame off, and no one heard their screams through the sturdy wood. Eventually, Alice and Mildred died of asphyxiation, just 12 hours before being found. As it turned out, the bed hadn't been secured well enough, and nobody showed the sisters how to set it up correctly, so they didn't know they needed to pull down the legs of the bed. This shifted the weight of the entire structure and the people on it to the wooden casing, which gave in and came away from the wall, causing tragedy. People are predominantly scared of an icicle falling on them in the winter or a brick hitting them near a construction site. However, sometimes there can be unexpected events no one can see coming and avert. One of them happened on October 21st, 1988, in the Argentinian capital of Buenos Aires. On that day, 75-year-old Marta Espina was walking down Rivadavia Avenue. She was a few meters from this intersection, but never reached it. That's because a poodle named Kachi tumbled out of the 13th floor, hit Marta on the head, and killed her instantly. It's unknown how the animal had fallen, but its owners had most likely failed to take care of the necessary safety regulations. Although the poodle died as well, technically it caused 2 more human fatalities. When passerbyers started gathering around Marta Espina's body, Ida Sola was on the other side of the road. She got curious about the fuss and ran to the site of the tragedy across the busy avenue, ignoring the traffic regulations. She was killed by a bus in the middle of the road. One man saw the deaths of both Marta and Ida and suddenly felt unwell. He got dizzy. He miraculously managed to cross the avenue, asked the employees of a car dealership for help, and went unconscious. Soon, he died of a heart attack. The story of a deadly domino effect set off by a single poodle made rounds worldwide. However, what do you think of a domino, the height of a 2-story building? In 1982, an Arizona man named David Grundman invited his friend on a day trip. They rode far into the desert and stopped. Then Grundman pulled out his shotgun. That wasn't against the state law of gun ownership, but I'm not sure if it's legal to shoot at cacti for fun. However, that was exactly what David started doing. He was ruthlessly murdering small saguaros as if they were the bad guys in the American action movie. The man quickly got bored though and turned his attention to a giant saguaro cactus nearby. For the first 75 years of their life, these cacti only grow the central trunk. The lateral branches appear later. In addition, this desert is their only natural habitat. The broad saguaro cactus Grundman picked as his target was almost 100 years old and had grown to nearly 8 meters. The man opened fire, shooting off the massive side branches one by one. He carelessly approached the cactus, failing to consider the possible consequences. All of a sudden, the cactus struck back. Its entire 8-meter-long trunk fell on Grundman so fast that the man didn't even finish the word he'd started shouting. David Grundman died on the spot, crushed by the very cactus that he'd just shot. The plant could have weighed over 2,200 kilograms. Quite often, though, nature turns out deadly for humans, even when it's thought to be impossible. Canadian Taylor Josephine Lucio arrived in Cape Breton Highlands National Park in late October of 2009. She wanted to rest in nature between giving concerts. Not long before this trip, she'd released her debut country album under the stage name Taylor Mitchell and became an instant success. The girl was nominated for a Canadian Folk Music Award as Young Performer of the Year and went on her first tour around the country in her newly bought car. Taylor's life looked perfect, as did the view opening from the Skyline Trail, where on October 27th, the girl met a couple of tourists. The pair and Taylor parted ways and didn't see each other anymore. Soon afterward, though, the couple spotted two unusually bold coyotes and later heard their howls. Something about those sounds bothered the tourists, so after reaching a rest spot, they told a group of hikers about the strange coyote sighting. However, when the hikers set out on a path, they started stumbling upon someone's personal belongings, among which were keys and a small knife. Eventually, all of this led the hikers to an absolutely horrific scene. A badly bitten and scratched Mitchell lay among the trees, and an angry coyote was standing over her. The tourists barely managed to shoo the animal away from the girl, who was injured but still alive. The entire time before Mitchell was taken to the hospital, the coyote remained near and growled at the rescuers. This happened even though these animals are normally shy, keep away from humans, and aren't considered dangerous for us. That's why Mitchell had absolutely no reason to worry about her safety in the nature park. Unfortunately, the two beasts that attacked her were different. Eastern coyotes are a wolf hybrid, which makes them bigger and bolder. The animals who attacked Taylor Mitchell behaved more like wolves. Coyotes usually hunt hares, birds, lizards, and even grasshoppers. However, there wasn't enough small prey in the area, so the predators started hunting moose to survive. That's why they perceived the lonely young girl as an easy target. All of this only became known 13 years after Taylor Mitchell died in the hospital because of blood loss from countless animal bites. This case remains the first and the only known deadly coyote attack against an adult. However, after this, scientists and the government had to revise the status coyotes enjoyed as animals safe for humans. How often does something that's thought to be benign suddenly turn out to be fatal? 75-year-old Judy K. Zagorski from Michigan and her sister set sail near the Florida Keys archipelago, not far from Miami. It was March 18, 2008, and their small boat was taking the two women around a heaven-like seashore area. They were going at approximately 43 kilometers per hour. The water was still, and nothing looked like it could intrude upon their leisure moments. However, all of a sudden, Judy got attacked by a giant spotted eagle ray. It knocked her off her feet, and the woman hit her back on the deck. The ray's wingspan reached up to 1.8 meters, and its weight was around 34 kilograms. A collision with such a large animal at such a great speed could cause serious injuries. So Judy's sister immediately rushed to her. The woman was unconscious, presumably from having hit her head on the deck. However, the reality was much worse than that. The ray's tail punctured Judy's neck with its poisonous spikes. Rays never attack humans, though, let alone mid-air. They jump out of the water to escape predators or shake off parasites, and you can just accidentally end up in their way. Apart from that, they use their tail spikes exclusively for self-defense. So it was nothing but a fatal accident, which killed the ray itself as well. What are the odds of something like this happening to a person on a boat in the open sea? The chances may seem slim, but we know of at least 20 people that were also accidentally killed by rays. One of them was the legendary wildlife conservationist and TV personality Steve Irwin, who had his heart pierced by a ray right in the middle of filming. Eventually, virtually anything in this world can turn out to be deadly. On September 10, 1983, one of the most unusual serves in the history of tennis happened. On that day, there was a match of one of the world's 4 most prestigious tournaments, the US Open Juniors. A Swede named Stefan Edberg entered the court. It was his first year in professional tennis, and, as it became clear later, this was one of the matches he'd never be able to forget. Apart from the 2 tennis players, another person present on the court is a linesman, a judge who makes sure the ball stays within the court lines. At Edberg's match, it was Richard Wertheim. He was sitting on a chair right across from the net and diligently doing his job, when suddenly Edberg sent an errant serve right into his groin. The force of the impact knocked the linesman down, along with his chair. When help arrived, Wertheim was unconscious and wouldn't come around. Edberg was extremely distressed about injuring the linesman, but Wertheim was immediately taken to the hospital, and it looked like the accident was over. The Swedish tennis player went on to win not just the US Open, but also all 3 junior Grand Slam tournaments, becoming the first and, to this day, remaining the only player to ever achieve this result. Regarding Richard Wertheim, his fight ended 5 days later in the hospital, where he died of a brain hemorrhage. The doctors admitted that Edberg's serve wasn't the immediate cause of death, since Wertheim had chronic cardiovascular disease and had already suffered a heart attack and a stroke. Yet linesmen never sat on chairs near the court again after this accident. However, sometimes people walk into danger without realizing how steep the price can be. On a frosty morning of February 2nd, 2008, a scary and mysterious event happened in the Bulgarian capital of Sofia. A local biology teacher, Lydia Tsakova, and her husband, Georgi, and her friend, Nadezhda Lebenova, were returning from a funeral of Lebenova's partner. At some point, Lydia stopped the car, and then all 3 of them got out with bottles in their hands and started pouring some liquid into the drain hole. The next moment, a super powerful explosion happened, and the metal hatch cover was hurtling into the air with such force that it decapitated Lydia. Her husband and friend got bad skin scalds and were blinded, but survived. Later, the bottles from which the victims had poured liquids into the sewer were found, and it turned out they contained diethyl ether and methanol, highly flammable, dangerous chemicals that caused the explosion. The poisonous vapors likely made the 3 friends feel dizzy in the car, so they decided to get rid of the substances. The question of where they got the chemicals and what they were using them for remains. At first, the police came up with a version according to which the biology teacher, Lydia Tsakowski, was just too into chemical experiments in her spare time. But had that been the case, she would have known for sure that such liquids were not to be poured into the sewer. It's also unlikely that she'd taken them to a funeral. Moreover, a bit later, the police found 10 liters of sulfuric acid and 5 liters of nitric acid in Nadezhda Lebenova's house. What she and the Sukov couple needed all these chemicals for remains unknown to this day. However, it looks like they'd made a deadly mistake that took the life of one of them and broke the fate of those who stayed alive. Quite often, people want to change something for the better. If they fail, they can make thoughtless steps that end in tragedy. A resident of Hampshire, England, Mark Gleason had a serious snoring problem that developed after a traffic accident. His snoring bothered him and didn't let his partner sleep. Gleason had gone to doctors to solve the problem, but they had bad news for him. His post-accident trauma made the snoring incurable. Gleason was in despair. He just wanted to fall asleep and wake up next to the woman he loved, but this was off limits due to his insufferable snoring. So the couple decided to solve the problem on their own by resorting to an unexpected and reckless experiment. On a March night in 1996, before going to bed, Gleason's partner gave him 2 tampons, which he put in his nostrils and secured with glue so they wouldn't fall out at night. He hoped this would stop him from snoring. Although this situation seems funny, it ended in a tragedy. Gleason took his sleeping pills and went to sleep on the first floor while his partner went to rest in a room on the second floor. That was why she didn't hear him start choking in his sleep and die of asphyxiation before he even woke up. It all started with a genuine desire not to cause discomfort to the people around. An enterprise in Flat Rock, Michigan wanted to make the work of its employees easier. On January 25, 1979, a young worker named Robert Williams started work at Ford Motor Company's Michigan Casting Center. He was chipping away at his usual tasks until he was asked to go to the storage rack to count parts manually, since the machine responsible for this work started giving erroneous inventory readings. Yet, apart from Williams, a manipulator robot was also working in the storage space. It was performing its task of searching for parts alongside Robert. At some point, however, the robotic arm attacked the man all of a sudden, hitting him on the head. Then it went on doing its work like nothing had happened. Only half an hour later, Williams' colleagues went to look for him and found his already dead body. He died instantly of a traumatic brain injury. The man's family filed a lawsuit since Williams couldn't have avoided this catastrophe. There was neither a sound alert of the robot approaching nor a mechanism that would turn it off when a human was around. Nothing at all. It was the first officially registered death of a human at the hands of a robot, which some journalists dubbed the start of the rise of the machines. The name seems accurate, since from 1992 to 2017, 41 workplace deaths caused by robots were recorded in the US. In 2005 alone, 77 machine-caused accidents happened in the UK. Recently, rumors of military AI robots having killed 29 scientists either in Japan or South Korea started circulating online. Ultimately, it all turned out to be fake news created by people whose imagination got overexcited by old sci-fi. If the machines do start killing people, there'll definitely be a video about it on my channel. Subscribe so that you don't miss anything important.